MarketPro, as a boutique executive search firm, gets to really have their finger on the pulse of some neat things as we go through changes in our economy. And we've never seen more change than we've seen in the past couple of years with the pandemic and what that's meant for how we're going to work in the future. And from where we sit within the executive search world, placing really top-level marketing executives, product executives, brand executives, etc., we get to have some really interesting conversations with lots of organizations and also lots of very talented people to see where their head's at around this, right? And it's pretty clear where we're going to end up at this point. 80% of companies are going to end up in a hybrid environment. And that's going to be 2 to 3 days a week in the office on a rotating basis where marketing is in on the same day that, with each other, IT is in, and we're doing it in a way that collaborates interaction and meetings. And what works really well is everyone in the office collaborating in a meeting or everyone on a Zoom collaborating and meeting, but what doesn't work well is half the team being virtual and half the team being in the office. It makes it much more complicated. So those are the things that HR professionals are looking at as they're looking to go back to work and as they're looking about how we're going to go back to work, right? So we've got some pockets of the economy that are not going back, right? If you look at the technology industry, software specifically, most of them are going to stay remote. And we're seeing very large tech companies say, this has worked, there's no reason for us to go back, and there's no reason for us to be spending a lot of money on office space. And so that's been fascinating. So if you're trying to recruit from large software, large technology companies, and you're trying to recruit them to a role where they're going to be in the office 5 days a week, you're going to have a very difficult time pulling that off because your competitors are not doing that, right? And if you're in a more traditional industry where I think most everybody, 80% or so, is going to go back on a hybrid plan, if you are able to be remote or if you are able to offer more flexibility, then ultimately you're going to have an advantage in recruiting talent. Now, that's not to say all talent, right? Some people will want to be back in the office on a hybrid environment. We have barely talked to anyone that wants to be back in the office 5 days a week. And so that's very interesting as we go forward, because if you as an organization decide we're going back 5 days a week, you're going to have a retention challenge and you're going to ultimately have a recruiting challenge. So we have a client that's in the Southeast, about a $20-30 billion company. And we've placed a significant part of their marketing team, so the CMO and most of the level that reports up to her. And at the end of the day, they decided to go back earlier than most companies, and they decided to go back 5 days a week. So they've been in the office over 4 months, maybe 5 or 6 at this point in time. And so far, they've lost 40% of their marketing team. And still, they're sticking with, at this point, we're going to work in the office, and we're not going to be a virtual or hybrid type company. But it shows you the retention risk that's out there for a company that is hired great talent. That great talent has options, and one of those options is to go for a company that's willing to let remote work be a part of their day. And then we kind of have to look at why, right? Why is it talent is so set on having a hybrid environment? Are there exceptions to that? Of course there are, but largely what we see when we talk to candidates is they're either fully remote and they're enjoying that and they want to stay that way. That is 80% of the tech industry and 20% of all other industries. And if that's the case, then that's going to be tough to get them in, even in a hybrid environment. Or, right, what we're seeing is I'm enjoying hybrid and I'm willing to go back in the office 2-3 days a week. And I think the general reason for that is what I will call burnout, right? So for a long time, since we've had iPhones and other related devices, right, you're always connected. And so you weren't in the environment anymore that you were in the 1980s, where you worked from 8 to 5, and when you got home, you were disconnected, right? The environment we had pre-pandemic was, I'm in the office from 8 to 5, but at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, I'm still checking email, I'm responding to stuff, and that was more complicated or made worse if you're in a global organization that had people in multiple time zones, right? And so now that led to a lack of balance that led to burnout for too many people who weren't able to balance it on their own. And then now that we've gone to this remote environment due to COVID, people are really enjoying that they've been able to pull some balance back, right? And so as we go forward, they're not going to give up 100% of that balance. They may give up part of it and go back into a hybrid environment, and they may enjoy that because they want the camaraderie, they want the interaction, they want the collaboration. But the chances of someone going back in 100% of the time, post-pandemic, post-COVID, top talent doesn't have to. So if you as an organization are going to require that, you may find that you're losing top talent.